What if one dream could change everything? Imagine being the laziest noble alive, doing nothing but sleeping your life away until you witness 37 years of relentless training in a single night. This is the story of a boy who inherits the will of a man who never stopped swinging his sword, not even at death. A hooded stranger in a tattered cloak arrives in a peaceful village. The local farmer immediately suspects the newcomer whose shadowed eyes hint at violence. Despite the farmer's hostility, the village elder welcomes the wanderer and gives him shelter. The farmer watches, sensing their peace is about to be disrupted. 4 days pass, and the stranger becomes a ghost, secluding himself without making a sound. While the farmer pretends not to care, the village gossips endlessly. Neighbors whisper, and children peer through cracks, desperate for a glimpse. 10 days in, village boys scatter chickens, shouting that the man swings a sword every day. The farmer continues his work, telling himself the stranger's backstory is none of his concern. Another month passes. The wooden gate rots, yet the rhythm from within never changes. Rumors spread. People claim the stranger is preparing for revenge or hiding as a disgrace knight. To the farmer, it's just noise. Curiosity eventually wins. The farmer wonders how strong the stranger must be after training for half a year. The disappointment hits hard when he peers over the wall. The stranger lifts a heavy dull blade and brings it down, up and down. A simple vertical chop. The form is mediocre with no flair. Just a man lifting iron and letting gravity do the work. The farmer walks away and stops caring. Life moves forward. A retired mercenary arrives with his daughter Rama. The farmer becomes enamored and courts her. Meanwhile, the stranger continues his ritual. 3 years pass. The farmer notes the man swung his sword again today. After 2 years of courtship, Rama becomes his wife. They lie together in their home, happiness filling the quiet. Yet a strange thought intrudes. 5 years have passed. People have laughed, cried, lived, and died. Yet the stranger remains in the distance, raising and lowering his sword endlessly. The years blur. The stranger stands shirtless in summer heat. Winter arrives with snow, but the stranger is still there. The farmer's life blooms. He and Rama welcome their daughter Laura. 7 years pass, 10 years, 15 years. Even during rainstorms, the lone figure stands unmoving, but for the rise and fall of his arms. In the present, the farmer is now an elder. He sits at his desk, rubbing tired eyes. He hasn't checked on the neighbor lately, but he doesn't need to. He knows the man is out there. The training has become a fundamental law of their existence. The old man's eyes flutter open to his grandson's beaming face. Laura tells her son to stop bothering Grandpa. She's taking the kids to the market. He waves off the invitation, feeling too tired. After his family leaves, he decides a walk might clear his mind. As he strolls through the hamlet, villagers greet him respectfully. He walks down the path, thinking about how 37 years have passed. The village has changed, but he stops at a ruined wooden gate overgrown with vines, except just this place. Suddenly, a noise snaps him to attention. Someone is running. He sees a figure dashing relentlessly, gripping a heavy sword, muscles straining. The vision shifts. The runner is now kneeling, body glistening with sweat, chest heaving. Yet his hands remain locked around the blade's hilt. His eyes are raging. He hasn't let go even until the end. The old man stands frozen. The intensity burns into his soul. The silver halo around the warrior's body fades. The old man approaches and lays the stranger down gently. Closing his eyes, he whispers, hoping the fallen swordsman has passed on to a better place. A young boy bolts upright in bed, chest heaving, cold sweat drenching his clothes. His blue eyes are wide with terror as he clutches the blanket. The remnants of emotions fade. He murmurs, wondering what that dream was. Far from that village, morning sun rises over the Pereira estate in the Hale Kingdom. Guard discuss the children of Baron Pereira. One guard talks about young Lady Kir, who at 11 received the title of enchantress from the royal family. He explains how rare enchanters are. The mood shifts when another guard scoffs, asking what difference it makes since the eldest is the young lord. Anyway, the mention kills the conversation. While daughter Kirill is famous for talent, eldest son Irene Pereira is different. One guard brings up the boy's nickname, the deadbeat noble. The title is earned from tragedy. The boy lost his mother young and retreated from the world. Since then, Aaron has done nothing but stay in his room sleeping. The guards feel brief sympathy, but disdain his laziness. Their gossip stops when two figures approach. It's the second wife, Amelia, and prodigy daughter, Kir. Kir scolds them for being obnoxious during their shift. The guards snap to attention, bowing low and shouting apologies. Carol questions the worth of an apology. As they stammer, Amelia intervenes with a serene smile. She suggests they've learned their lesson. The noble women walk away, leaving the guards to collapse against the walls. Inside the mansion, Aaron Pereira jolts upright in his bed. His breathing is ragged, eyes wide. It's the middle of the day when he usually sleeps. Yet he's awake. He clutches his head, distressed. He tries to force himself back down, but his mind races to the strange dream haunting him. Since that dream, his reality has shifted. He recalls phantom sensations more real than anything. The taste of water after exhaustion, the screaming of muscles pushed to breaking. He stares at his soft hands, confused by the disconnect between his body and the memory of training. A maddening itch crawls beneath his skin, a desperate need to move. The door cracks open. A servant peers in, asking if the young master needs anything. Aaron stands by the bed, sweat dripping from his face. He looks at the servant, eyes intense and desperate. He stammers, struggling to voice the alien desire consuming him. Finally, he forces it out. He wants a sword, and he wants to swing it. The servant's expression shatters, replaced by absolute shock at the impossible command from the boy who does nothing but sleep. The Pereira family training grounds fell silent as an impossible sight unfolded. Aaron Pereira, the young master, infamous for never leaving his bed, stepped onto the field. Soldiers and guards exchanged shocked glances, one even asking his companion to pinch him to confirm this wasn't a dream. The sharp sting that followed proved the reality nobody expected. Aaron moved with heavy steps across the courtyard, his blonde hair catching the morning light while exhaustion marked his pale face. His attendant trailed behind, frantically explaining that the wooden practice weapons varied wildly in weight and balance. The man begged Aaron to wait for a proper instructor, but the young master refused without hesitation. Standing before the weapon rack, Aaron's gaze locked onto the heaviest wooden sword. The thick blade resembled a club more than any refined weapon. He reached out and gripped the hilt. Immediately, his arms trembled under the burden. Muscles accustomed only to silk sheets screamed in protest as sweat formed on his brow. Two noble officers observed the pathetic display. They acknowledged a hint of potential in his stance, but agreed. The boy looked utterly worthless. Their conversation turned to the humiliation Aaron suffered last month at the hands of Lord Jiren's son. That public shame apparently drove him from his chambers. They laughed while placing bets on how long his motivation would last, settling on 30 minutes at most. The attendant continued pleading, insisting swordsmanship couldn't be learned alone and suggesting they start fresh tomorrow. Aaron ignored every word. He heard the mocking laughter from above, felt every dismissive glance from the sidelines. Instead of crumbling, his eyes hardened with desperate focus as he prepared to swing. Each movement brought waves of agony through his untrained body. His foot slipped on the smooth stone and balance vanished. He crashed backward on the ground, chest heaving as mist escaped his mouth with each ragged breath. Despite the pain, strange relief settled into his exhausted limbs. He forced himself upright, dragging the heavy blade across the floor into position. A singular purpose drove him forward, replicating the movements from his recurring dream. With every forceful swing, the weight crushing his heart lifted slightly. Bad memories and festering grudges were sliced away by each arc of the blade, scattering into the wind. He became lost in pure intensity, eyes fixed and unblinking, consumed by rhythm and motion. Only a firm hand on his shoulder broke the trance. His attendant stood pale-faced, shouting for him to stop. The sun already touched the horizon, casting orange shadows across the grounds. Aaron blinked through mental fog, asking what time it was. As adrenaline drained from his system, strength evaporated. His legs turned to lead, and he collapsed into the attendant's arms, murmuring that he couldn't feel his throat anymore. The attendant scolded him for pushing beyond all reasonable limits, explaining he'd been calling out for ages without response. While helping Aaron back toward the mansion, the man insisted he leave cleanup to others and focus entirely on rest. Aaron managed only a weak nod, wondering if standing would even be possible tomorrow. Night fell over the estate. Every fiber of Aaron's being pulsed with shooting pains, soreness so intense he feared sleep impossible. Yet exhaustion within 5 minutes. He fell into deep slumber marked by rhythmic snoring. Days later, morning sun illuminated the dining hall where Aaron devoured food with savage hunger. He stuffed sandwiches into his mouth and gulped milk, his appetite matching his physical demands. The attendant asked if he planned to return to the training grounds again. Aaron confirmed immediately. The dream returned nightly, and his body craved movement only the sword could satisfy. It cleared his wandering thoughts and provided tangible progress. Slamming down his empty glass, he demanded more food. Near the estate gatehouse, guards discussed their ongoing wager. One confirmed it was the fourth day, eager to see the results. His companion remained cynical until a hooded figure approached. The brown-robed stranger leaned on a wooden staff, his face obscured as he politely requested directions to the training grounds. The guards demanded identification. The elder searches his memories, but struggles to find a parallel to such tenacity. A jarring thought arrests him. The boy possesses an iron will typically forged only through old age, yet impossibly exists within a 15-year-old. If this raw potential were guided by the right mentor, the results would be legendary. The question hangs heavy. Just how high will this boy ascend? Ancient texts describe the griffin as a legendary creature with a lion's body and eagle's head, possessing impenetrable steel-like skin. Yet, reality bends under Enchantress Kirill Pereira's will. Energy crackles and condenses, weaving together a massive crimson feathered beast that slams on a stone pavement. The impact knocks armored guards off balance. The griffin's glowing teal eyes fix on terrified soldiers. This is a construct imbued with energy mimicking life itself. Carol stands before her creation, finger extended in accusation. She singles out guards one by one, voice sharp with authority. Her eyes flick to a hooded, elderly stranger watching with an amused smile. The old man claims to be a wandering knight observing the grounds. Kir ignores him and turns fury to 3 guards, demanding why they're standing idle. The griffin lowers its head, beak inches from trembling soldiers. They stammer desperate excuses about shift changes. Carol cuts them off, furious they dare interrupt her. The griffin snaps its beak, silencing protests. She berates them for gossiping instead of maintaining discipline. A voice cuts through the tension. Aaron appears, wooden sword in hand, sweat dripping from his chin. He looks exhausted, breath ragged, asking what's happening. Kir's expression shifts to annoyance and concern. She snaps at him to quit immediately. Aaron blinks, confused. Carol roughly grabs his wooden blade, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. She lectures him harshly about swordsmanship, bringing up his history of sleeping all day. She points out his terrible form, comparing him to rookie guards. The griffin looms over the scene. Kirill accuses him of acting out because of rumors from 2 weeks ago. Before Aaron can respond, a calm, commanding voice interrupts. A dark-haired woman descends the stairs, instructing Kir to stop bothering her brother. Kir tries to protest, but the stern command allows no argument. The woman dismisses guards with praise, then warns Aaron not to overdo training. As they leave, guards sigh in relief before the griffin lunges, sending them scrambling. The hooded old man remains, stroking his beard. He watches Aaron standing alone. Despite the chaos, the boy's focus never faltered. He wonders if he should observe the young noble longer, sensing hidden potential. Later that night, a servant walks through dim corridors when Kir blocks his path. The confrontation escalates. The servant suggests she return later, attempting to step around her. The air grows heavy with unseen force. Kir's demeanor shifts to menace, questioning if he's talking back. Crushing pressure slams into him. Energy radiates from her small frame with such intensity his eyes widen in terror. His knees buckle, and he collapses, sweat beading on his forehead. Kirill warns not to tell anyone. Time passes to a sun-drenched bedroom where a small red-furred spirit resembling a cat in a top hat plays a silent melody. Visible notes of light soothe the sleeping blonde boy. As his eyes flutter open, the spirit places a letter and retreats. He reads the message. It's an apology from Kir for harsh words, explaining she was worried. She left a doll to help with rest and asks him to keep her visit secret from their mother. He flips the paper, finding another message from his mother, saying, "If Kir is annoying, just tell her." Despite laying around for 10 years, Kirill and his mother still care deeply. A knock announces the meal. His expression hardens with resolve. The hallway fills with purposeful footsteps. The older servant watches in disbelief as the young master strides past with energy absent for a decade. He announces he'll eat with his family. In the dining hall, tension turns bewildered. The boy piles meat onto Kir's plate while she looks overwhelmed. He stops, expression softening. He thanks his father, mother, and Carol, admitting he always wanted to express appreciation for taking care of him while he did nothing. He apologizes and confesses he loves them. His mother smiles warmly, eyes glistening. His bearded father looks at him with immense pride, returning the sentiment. His father mentions hearing about his swordsmanship focus, advising not to overwork himself. The boy assures him it's fine. Internally, noting that compared to training in his dreams, this is nothing. Weeks later, 2 guards stand on battlements overlooking the courtyard. They marvel that the young master has trained without missing a day for 15 straight days. Below, the boy swings a massive greatsword, clothes soaked with sweat, breath ragged, but grip iron-tight. Two men discuss a solitary figure seated on a mat near wooden barrels. They question who the elder is, noting his frequent presence. The elder, wrapped in a russet cloak, sits with a grass blade between his lips, expression unreadable. In truth, the old man's focus is sharp. 10 days have passed since he began observing. Initially, he believed the boy's dedication was born of fleeting pride, expecting him to abandon the sword before the week ended, but he admits he was completely wrong. The boy, known as the deadbeat noble, leans against a stone pillar, gasping for breath. His chest heaves and sweat drips. Yet, there's no complaint in his eyes. The elder finds it baffling that someone who never exercised can endure such punishment without showing distaste. The boy's rhythm isn't that of a child playing at war, but possesses the monotonous, heavy consistency of a blacksmith hammering steel, as if he's lived with that singular, unyielding mindset for decades. Searching through vast memories, the elder struggles to find precedent for such willpower. His eyes narrow as realization takes hold. He knows that no matter how talented a hero may be, there's one quality that typically only manifests after a lifetime, an iron will. Yet inexplicably, he sees that exact tempered resilience radiating from this 15-year-old boy. The young noble stands amidst swirling dust, silent aura of determination glowing around him. The elder's mind races with implications. If this boy continues paving his road through the way of the sword, and if that raw, impossible potential can be properly extracted by the right mentor, the limits of his future dissolve. He's left with a single lingering question. Just how high will he be able to go? The wooden grate's sword cleaves the air, kicking up dust. Aaron swings with exhausted determination, body drenched in sweat. An old man in a brown robe watches with sharp eyes. A burly worker asks if the boy has received formal training, noting his impressive movements despite fatigue. He speculates the upcoming instructor might be Knight or Jukur. Before the name fully leaves his lips, the old man's face contorts with fury. He roars a denial so loud it shocks the worker. The elder refuses to let a hidden gem like Aaron be polished by a rascal who only knows how to scream at soldiers. He rises and strides toward the main estate, determined to intervene. Inside the Lord's office, the elder stands before Aaron's father, having shed his guise. The Lord listens, stunned, asking if the assessment is accurate. The elder confirms without hesitation. The Lord's expression softens into disbelief and pride, but concern crosses his face as he looks down at the document. A recommendation letter for the Kronos Swordsmanship School. The parchment bears the insignia of the continent's most prestigious institution, legendary for its rigor. Merely being a trainee there grants the respect of a nobleman. But along with prestige comes brutal competition. The Lord worries if Aaron can survive. Later, the Lord presents the opportunity. He slides the recommendation across the desk, but speaks with caution, assuring his son he won't force him to go. Aaron asks for time to think. The Lord agrees. In his bedroom, Aaron sits staring at the floor. Doubt gnaws at him. He wonders if he can succeed after 10 years doing nothing. Fear is palpable, but frustration overrides it. His hand tightens into a fist. He can no longer bear the stagnation. He returns to his father's office and declares his acceptance. The day of departure arrives. The family gathers to see him off. His mother and sibling wave. His father looks on with pride. Aaron climbs into the carriage, door clicking shut. As they roll past the estate walls, the driver asks if this is his first time leaving alone. Aaron confirms it is. The servant offers a small bundle. Inside rests a weathered pendant from Kirill. Aaron clutches it against his chest as warmth spreads through him. They stand before the academy walls. The servant offers to escort him, but Aaron stops him, explaining he's only a trainee now and needs to do things on his own. The servant is overcome with emotion. Aaron promises to return and takes his first steps toward the gate. Up ahead, a blue-haired boy flanked by guards is being announced with fanfare. A herald announces young noble Bart Lloyd from Count Lloyd's family, recommended by Sir Cosway. The gatekeepers bow respectfully. Aaron steps up to the checkpoint, introducing himself and extending a scroll with a recommendation from Sir Somerville. The guard's eyes widen, exclaiming he knows Sir Brand Somerville. In his mind, the legendary knight appears, a warrior cutting down wolves and monsters. He assures Aaron he'll pass and gestures toward the auditorium. Once Aaron leaves, the guards shift from respect to confusion. One mutters about Somerville actually giving a recommendation. The older guard notes the kid is the deadbeat noble. His colleague explains it's the lazy kid from the Pereira family, wondering what the picky old man saw in him. The older guard states they'll find out soon. Aaron pushes open the auditorium doors, revealing a hall packed with people. As he steps in, silence ripples through the crowd. Hundreds of eyes fixate on him. A redhead girl whispers to stay calm. A silver-haired girl stands silently with stoic expression. Aaron wipes sweat from his cheek as he navigates the sea of trainees. A booming voice echoes. A large man in heavy armor with a jagged scar stands on the podium. He welcomes 400 preliminary trainees, introducing himself as their instructor. The trainees murmur nervously. The scarred man scans the room. His gaze lingers on the blue-haired noble and redhead before focusing on the silver-haired girl. She stands with perfect posture, radiating a cold aura. He recognizes Ilya Lindsay, the second genius from the Lindsay family. Bart Lloyd stares at the silver-haired girl in despair. Realizing his chance of getting first place has disappeared, the instructor slams a fist against his palm. He explains they're not yet trainees, but preliminary trainees. The training process is difficult. If they pass the next 2 assessment tests, they can stay for a year. More hell awaits after becoming full trainees. He instructs them to leave their belongings and go outside. The instructor leads them toward a sprawling field dominated by a massive circular track. He explains it's for physical training, focusing on endurance. Without hesitation, he launches forward, shouting for everyone to run. The sudden start catches students off guard. They scramble to follow. The instructor leads effortlessly while students struggle. He taunts them and accelerates. Chaos ensues as breathing becomes ragged toward the rear. The blue-haired student maintains calculated rhythm. He tells himself it's a marathon. His gaze drifts to a blond boy struggling behind everyone. His expression hardens with disdain. The blond boy's legs give out. He collapses on a dirt, gasping for air. The blue-haired student keeps running, leaving him behind, thinking the nickname fits perfectly. On the ground, the blond boy is in agony. His vision swims, and chest feels tight. He thinks his heart is going to burst. The gap between him and the rest widens. He can't take another step. But then, a memory flares. His boot slams into the dirt with renewed force. The blue-haired student turns, eyes widening. The blond boy commands his broken body to obey. He forces himself to his feet, swaying but standing. This is nothing. At the front, the instructor grins sharply, recognizing that fighting spirit. The blond boy's mind flashes to the figure, haunting his sleep. A warrior with a scarred back standing alone, radiating absolute power with nothing but a simple sword. That image is etched into his soul. He wants to be like him. The desire transforms into fuel. He clenches his teeth, pupil dilating. To reach that height, he cannot stop. He needs to keep running. He throws his body forward, arms pumping, legs driving into the ground with explosive power. He screams out his defiance, tearing himself away from the label that has defined him. No more being a deadbeat. The instructor watches from the sidelines, hand on his chin. He's surprised. Aaron continues, pushing forward despite expecting him to give up. On the track, Aaron is a mess of exhaustion. His vision blurs, body moving from sheer will rather than physical capability. He gasps for air, staggering as he forces himself past his limit. Finally, his body fails. Aaron's legs buckle, and he pitches forward, consciousness slipping away. The instructor moves with a blur of speed, catching the boy mid-fall. He holds the unconscious Aaron, observing the sheer depletion. He ran until his body literally shut down. The instructor smiles, finding this perseverance incredibly interesting. Aaron's eyes snap open. He stares up at a wooden ceiling. Disoriented, a man with a ponytail introduces himself as Instructor Run Tarhel in charge of the recovery room. He boasts that Aaron's swift consciousness is due to his superior medical skills. Aaron offers a polite thank you. The instructor laughs, joking he'll likely see Aaron here often before clarifying he's teasing. Tarhal produces a rolled scroll explaining these are the preliminary test rankings. Aaron unrolls the paper and scans until reaching the bottom. Rank 400 dead last. Aron Pereira. Tarhal watches closely explaining this is just preliminary, assuring rankings will shift within a year. He expects shame or despair, but Aaron stares with calm, unbothered expression. Tarhal finds the reaction unexpected. Deciding Aaron is fine, he grabs him and shoves him toward the door, telling him to get moving. The scene shifts to a lecture hall where Instructor Karaka addresses gathered trainees. He unveils a chart displaying the Kronos Swordsmanship School schedule, a rigorous cycle of waking early, training, meals, and study. Free time is theirs to use, and training facilities remain open for personal practice. A blonde student smiles, excited by the prospect of practicing swordwork. However, Karaka raises a finger with a sharp warning. The declaration rings out, striking students like a physical blow. The instructor's voice is absolute, forbidding any weapon training. The restriction sends shock through the crowd. Later that evening, 3 students stroll down the cobblestone path. Blue-haired nobleman Lloyd walks flanked by companions who fill the silence with chatter. One asks if the liberal arts class was boring. His friend quips, it's probably because he couldn't understand. The first boy retorts to shut up. They push open gymnasium doors, stepping into a space humming with activity. Lloyd remarks it's spacious. His follower notes, everyone's working hard. Lloyd says they'll get tired soon. His gaze drifts, arrested by a sight that freezes him. A silver-haired girl stands at a squat rack, shoulders burdened by immense weight. She drives upward, heavy plates rattling as she completes the repetition with terrifying power. It's Ilia Lindsay. Lloyd stares, sweat beading on his temple. Her presence alone is suffocating. In his mind's eye, the floor falls away, replaced by dark void. He envisions himself stranded on a crumbling pillar, looking up helplessly as Ilia ascends a staircase into darkness. She exists on a tear he cannot reach. The trance breaks with incredulous voices. One exclaims how strong she is. Another points toward a bench press, noting the deadbeat's training. 2. Lloyd sees the blonde boy struggling violently. His arms shake as he attempts to lift just the empty bar. One lackey laughs, questioning why he lazed around for 15 years if he was going to work this hard. The other says he might faint again. Nearby, Ilia wipes her face, indifferent to the mockery. Lloyd turns his back and commands his friends to stop wasting time. As Lloyd walks away, his eyes lock onto a girl with fiery red hair doing bicep curls. He recognizes Judith, the commoner, who humiliated him by taking second place. He watches her strain against the weights. Lloyd's expression d'arquence, compétitive aura flaring. He stares at her intently, vowing he won't lose to her again. The intensity is palpable, but Judith isn't intimidated. She stops her workout and glares back with annoyance. She snaps at him to stop looking. Lloyd flinches, caught off guard. He stammers, asking if she just spoke to him. Judith shoots back, asking if he's dumb, stating she can't focus because of his stares, and tells him to get lost. Lloyd's friend interjects, stepping forward with indignation. He explains Lloyd is from the family of Count Lloyd, someone that shouldn't be disrespected by the likes of her. Judith looks at the shouting lackey with confusion and pity. She sighs unimpressed, asking what's up with them. The gym air is thick with tension as a dark-haired student screams into the red-haired woman's face, gripping a dumbbell tightly. He demands she fall to her knees and beg for Sir Lloyd's mercy. The woman barely flinches. Instead, she wrinkles her nose, pointing out his breath reeks. A sharp, commanding voice cuts through, ordering them to shut it. The red-haired woman whips her head around, confused. Beside her, the blue-haired student looks equally bewildered. Both freeze, eyes widening. A girl with silver hair stands over a bench press, holding the barbell bar effortlessly in one hand, looming over the blonde boy lying beneath. He looks up with nervous sweat as she asks if they can have a talk. The gym falls into stunned silence. Even the red-haired woman swallows hard. The silver-haired girl stares down at the boy before leaning in close. She lowers her voice to a whisper, speaking directly into his ear while he lies paralyzed. The surrounding students watch with bated breath, unable to catch a syllable. As quickly as she arrived, she straightens up and walks away. She exits the training hall and doors slam shut, leaving a vacuum of silence. The blonde boy sits up, looking dumbfounded. He glances to his side, realizing the temporary peace has evaporated. The red-haired woman and blue-haired student, along with others, rush toward him in frenzy. They crowd his space, desperate to know what happened. The blonde boy tries to play it off, claiming he couldn't hear anything, and attempts to resume his workout. He pushes against the barbell, but it stops halfway. The red-haired woman has grabbed the weights, overpowering his lift and pinning the bar down. She looms over him, face shadowed. When the boy stammers an apology, she cuts straight to the chase. She tells him she has no interest in long conversations and demands he answer quickly. Leaning in until her face is inches from his, she invokes Ilia Lindsay and aggressively asks exactly what the silver-haired girl whispered to him. Judith stares at Aaron with incredulous eyes, demanding to know if Ilia only taught him how to use the drill room equipment properly. Aaron stammers that it's true. Judith leans in closer, questioning their relationship. Aaron insists it was his first time seeing her. Judith holds his gaze before straightening. She tells him to get rid of that expression before someone thinks she's bullying him. She marches off, leaving Aaron baffled. Lloyd appears, staring down at him with intense curiosity, asking what he and Ilia talked about. A month passes in a blur of grueling conditioning. Lloyd drinks water, listening to peers grumble about the lack of sword training. His eyes drift across the room. He watches Ilya standing over Aaron, instructing him like a drill sergeant. She commands him not to bend his back. Aaron grunts, struggling under the barbell, legs trembling. She adds to breathe evenly, watching his form like a hawk. Lloyd wipes his mouth, gaze darkening. His thoughts shift to the blonde boy struggling. To Lloyd, Aaron is the complete opposite of a genius. Lloyd reasons that although mockery and Ilya's encouragement might stimulate Aaron now, it's temporary. He'll stray back to his old ways. Determined, Lloyd rallies his followers, announcing they're going to the tracks. He steps out, but a blur whips past him. Judith tears across the courtyard, her speed explosive. Lloyd watches, rationalizing that commoners have no choice but to work hard. The sight fuels his competitive fire. Another 3 months pass. From the balcony, instructors observe with keen interest. Below, the unrivaled trio pushes their limits. Judith performs explosive box jumps. Lloyd runs laps with unyielding stamina. Ilya performs calisthenics with perfect grace. One instructor mentions the trio, then his gaze shifts to a lone figure on the bench press. Another instructor cuts him off firmly, saying they can't call him a deadbeat noble anymore. Aaron presses heavy dumbbells overhead, muscles defined, shirts soaked, eyes burning with focus. Later, trainees gather in the lecture hall. The head instructor booms that it's time for their midterm evaluation. Behind him, a curtain drops to reveal a map of a complex, winding course. He declares they only need to finish before the time limit. He adds, this test is just an evaluation and rankings don't matter. Relief washes over some, but he continues. However, the Swordmaster will award the top 5 preliminary trainees himself. The atmosphere shifts from fear to competitive hunger. It'll begin in 10 days. Outside, Lloyd stands calculating. Elsewhere, Judith slams her barbell down, having hit a new personal record. Satisfied, she decides that's enough. But desperate gasping interrupts her. She turns to see Aaron on his hands and knees, dry heaving from exertion. Judith frowns. He's training past his limits again. She cannot fathom possessing less perseverance than a boy rumored to be a lazy deadbeat. Fueled by competitive adrenaline, she grabs her barbell and resumes lifting with aggressive intensity. It's one day before the evaluation. 2 instructors discuss the roster. Their conversation is cut short by the arrival of a robust bearded figure. It's Ian, the schoolmaster. The instructors stiffen. Ian waves off their formality, stating he prefers to see students with his own eyes. He moves through the hall, his jovial demeanor shifting to sharp observation. He comments on this year's high-quality batch. His eyes land on a silver-haired girl moving with precise rhythm. He recognizes her as the second genius of the Lindsay family. His expression softens into pity. His attention shifts to Judith, who's still lifting with frantic energy. Ian notes she's clearly overdoing it. Ian approaches but doesn't scold her. He merely chuckles at her stubbornness. Instead, he asks, "Where is Aaron Pereira?" A rhythmic, heavy thudding echoes from the corner. Metal strikes metal with hypnotic regularity. The instructors check the time and their eyes widen. Aaron has been lifting for nearly 30 minutes without a break. The younger instructor steps forward to intervene, but Ian raises a hand. He commands them to let the boy be. Ian's gaze is fixed on Aaron's face. The boy is drenched in sweat, teeth gritted in pure exertion. Yet his rhythm doesn't falter. Ian watches with profound interest, realizing what he's witnessing is not just physical endurance. He sees a mind that has exerted perfect, absolute control over its body. The exhausted young man collapses onto the mattress. He exhales, staring at the ceiling while his chest heaves. His mind drifts through the chaotic events. He recalls the faces of those who once mocked him, realizing their attitudes have shifted. They're conscious of him now. His thoughts wander to Ilya, deciding that overanalyzing will get him nowhere. He covers his eyes. He tells himself to stop thinking and rest. As he closes his eyes, the room fades away, replaced by consuming darkness. The blackness shifts into a vivid crimson dreamscape. He's standing in a void filled with billowing red fabric. A towering figure in red robe stands before him. He feels small like a child. He presses his face against the figure's chest, enveloped by the massive red cloak. The warmth is comforting. He clutches the fabric tightly. Suddenly, a blinding white light shears through the darkness. High above, a muscular warrior with flowing pale hair descends, wielding a colossal sword that splits the sky. The boy looks up in awe as wind whips around him. The scene shifts to departure. The boy, now dressed in white uniform, grips the red-robed figure's sleeve before letting go. He steps back with a confident smile. He thanks the guardian for everything. Turning his back on the red darkness, he walks toward consuming white light, declaring it's time to go. In the real world, the young man snaps awake. His body jerks as wisps of black, shadowy energy steam off his skin. He sits up, the dark aura intensifying. As he stands, the shadows swirl aggressively around his limbs and back, coating him in a jagged, smoky power that radiates from his very core. Heavy boots impact the dirt. As Eren takes his place, he stands amidst the gathering crowd, tunic sodden with sweat, clinging to a frame wrapped in bandages, posture screaming exhaustion before the test has even begun. The whispers start immediately. They question if he trained through the night. Nearby, Brat Lloyd and his companion observe with disdain. To them, Eren is a fool who has mismanaged his condition. Brat's gaze shifts to Judith, noting she looks equally ragged. A smirk touches his lips. As long as he maintains focus, second place is practically guaranteed behind Prodigy Ilya. The instructor's voice booms. He outlines the midterm evaluation, a grueling 4-stage course comprised of the push press, box jump agility test, running track, and swimming. The rules are simple. Exceed the target goal to advance. It's an absolute evaluation of personal growth, not a race against neighbors as trainees take their places behind weighted barbells. The atmosphere tightens. The command triggers instant movement. Ilya Lindsay moves with terrifying precision, her barbell rising and falling in a blur of silver hair and steel. She's visibly faster than everyone. Brat grits his teeth, hoisting his own weights, accepting he cannot match her speed. He focuses on his rhythm, intending to secure runner-up position, but a disturbance in his peripheral vision shatters his concentration. Brat's eyes widen. Next to him, Eren is moving. The boy who looked ready to collapse is driving the iron bar upward with relentless rhythmic intensity. Sweat flies as Eren pumps the weight, breathing heavy but controlled. He lets out a guttural roar, forcing the bar up one last time with an explosion of effort. The instructor announces Ilya Lindsay. Stage 1 pass. Brat is barely processing when the impossible happens. Eren Pereira stage 1 pass. Brat freezes, face flushing with disbelief. Eren drops the weights and stumbles forward, chest heaving, steam practically rising from his overheated skin. The crowd gasps, stunned that the deadbeat has kept pace with the elite. Ignoring the shock, Eren lurches toward the second station. He stands before the wooden box for the agility test. Doubts swirl around him. But as he crouches and explodes upward, landing firmly on the platform, his internal world shifts. He's surprised by his own power. He leaps down and rebounds instantly. His body feels different, not heavy with fatigue, but burning with strange, sustainable heat. He pushes aside fear of burnout, eyes narrowing with determination. He needs more. He speeds up, movements becoming a blur of kinetic energy as he vaults up and down, accelerating beyond what anyone thought possible. More. The cry rips through the training grounds, startling the instructor. He watches with confusion and awe before finally announcing Eren Pereira has passed stage 2. Nearby, Judith is lifting with terrifying ferocity, face contorted in pure exertion, veins bulging as she forces the heavy iron upward with explosive power. The instructor's surprise melts into a satisfied smile. The test transitions immediately under the harsh sun. Recruits enter stage 3, long distanciance running. Eren is already ragged, chest heaving with every step. Sweat drenches his shirt and vision swims, but he keeps moving. Ahead, Ilya creates a disheartening gap. She runs with upright, effortless posture. Eren watches that retreating figure, his steps heavy and loud. He clutches his chest, puzzled by a sensation that has nothing to do with fatigue. It's a strange, tightening feeling in his heart, sudden clarity amidst exhaustion. His eyes narrow, focusing intensely on Ilya's back. The desire manifests not as a wish to survive, but a demand to conquer. He wants to surpass the prodigy. Just as Eren steals his resolve, a red blur explodes past him, kicking up a violent trail of dust. It's Judith sprinting with the desperation of a madwoman. Eren stares, bewildered by her speed. Inside Judith's mind, the world is a tunnel of traumatic memories. She recalls the agony of her origin. Days doing push-ups with sharp needles beneath her, threatening to pierce her flesh if she collapsed. She hears phantom whispers of the elite. Gossip about a commoner daring to enter Kronos' swordsmanship school. Sneak calling her cheeky and special. Their doubt fuels her stride. She runs with fury born of humiliation and pain, screaming internally that they know nothing of her sacrifice. She vows never to lose. Driven by blinding rage, Judith reaches the edge and flings herself off the cliff without breaking stride. Plunging into stage 4, long-distance swimming, she hits the water hard and immediately surfaces, thrashing against waves and gasping for air. Shock paralyzes her as a jagged bolt of agony shoots through her calf. The muscle seizes violently, locking her leg in a crippling cramp. She thrashes in the water, panic setting in as her buoyancy fails. The timing feels cruel. She grits her teeth, face contorting in pain. Why did this have to happen now? She flails, trying to keep her head above the chopping waves, but her movements are jagged and ineffective. Ahead, she sees the other swimmer continuing forward, and bitter realization washes over her. She knows she pushed too hard, but the thought that stings worse is the possibility that even her absolute limit isn't enough. Does overworking mean nothing? She gasps, pleading with her limbs for strength, but the ocean pulls her down. Frustration gives way to the suffocating weight of water. She slips beneath the surface, the blue turning to dark, enveloping gray. It feels impossibly difficult to fight anymore. As she sinks deeper, watching bubbles of her own breath drift upward, her will dissolves. She's tired. The desire to simply close her eyes becomes overwhelming. The darkness closes in, silent and heavy until the water above suddenly churns. A figure crashes through the surface, diving down with urgent speed, reaching into the void to grab her. Confusion creates a haze as she's hauled rapidly toward the light. They breach the surface, the sudden rush of air filling their lungs. Her rescuer gasps loudly, sputtering water and coughing while struggling to keep them both afloat. She hangs limp, chin resting weakly on the other shoulder. Through the blur of exhaustion, she wonders who pulled her back from the dark. She forces her heavy eyelids open, tilting her head just enough to see the wet blonde hair of the boy supporting her. The water churns violently as Aaron kicks against the current, arm locked around Judith's chest. Judith, barely conscious, mutters that his interference is annoying. Aaron ignores her, gasping that they're almost there. His feet find purchase on the muddy lake bed. With a final heave, Aaron hauls himself and Judith onto the bank. He collapses, water streaming from his clothes, while Judith coughs violently. The instructor rushes down, ordering Aaron to leave Judith to him and get back to the race. Aaron doesn't hesitate. He scrambles to his feet, launching himself forward to rejoin the pack. Judith watches his retreating back, mentally branding him an absolute idiot. The scene shifts to the aftermath. Instructors discuss the results. The green shirt instructor grins, noting the most remarkable element isn't the top ranker, but the boy who scraped in at the very bottom. He highlights the hero ranked 34th out of 35 passing candidates, Aaron Pereira. Elsewhere, Lansnir, Mokinaron. He'd been claiming that thanks to Aaron's foolishness, he secured 5th place. Lloyd walks past. Lance immediately shifts to fawning respect. As Lloyd distances himself, his mask cracks into frustration. He realizes the performance Aaron displayed was at a level he physically couldn't match. A heavy realization settles. If Judith hadn't burned out and required saving, he would have been pushed down to 4th place. Lloyd silently admits his total defeat to the boy everyone considers a fool. The following day, Aaron is heaving for breath on a dirt path. A sharp voice asks why he did it. Aaron looks up, startled to see Ilya with an intense gaze. Ilya demands answers. When Aaron asks if she means his rescue of Judith, Ilya confirms, asking why would he do such a thing. Aaron says quietly, he just felt like he had to. Ilya staris, disbelief evident. She asks if he knows that makes no sense. One of the instructors could have saved her. Why would he give up on a reward from the continent's greatest sword master? Not just that, the mouths that mocked him and gazes that looked down on him will continue. Aaron looks down. He asks softly if she's asking if he knows he could call a deadbeat noble. His mind drifts inward. For a long time, his reality was a stagnant green swamp. He remembers sinking the lethargy, the pathetic acceptance, but then hands had reached in. His family had dragged him out when he couldn't move himself. Aaron looks back up. He remembers the water closing over Judith's head. He explains that he, who was able to get up due to the help of several people, didn't think it would be right to pretend not to see someone drowning. That's why he did that. That's the only reason. A gentle smile touches his lips. Ilya falls silent, eyes widening before turning sharply away. She asks if he'd never held a sword until last year. Aaron confirms. She says skill is most important in sword training. He probably missed the opportunity for the swordmaster's guidance due to yesterday's evaluation. She starts to walk away. She won't offer him any more help. Even if he becomes everyone's laughingstock again, she hopes he doesn't regret this. Aaron watches her retreat. He calls out, asking why she helped him in the first place. Ilya pauses. She glances over her shoulder. She admits she's not sure. She guesses she just disliked people who talked about others without having a clue about them. Without another word, she resumes her pace. Later, The main hall fills with light. Students gather for the ceremony. The results are announced. Out of the original candidates, 113 successful trainees remain. At the front, the top 5 stand in line. Ilya is among them alongside the blue-haired boy and 3 others. They'll receive a special reward and private audience with the Swordmaster. Suddenly, the bald instructor interrupts with a wide grin. He announces they're leaving someone out. Preliminary trainee number 311, Aaron Pereira, come to the podium. Aaron stiffens, eyes going wide as heads turn. Even Ilya and the blue-haired trainee look back in surprise. The bald instructor addresses the assembly. He muses that competition is fun, but if you get too invested, you could miss important things. He smiles warmly, gesturing toward Aaron. Trainee Aaron Pereira didn't do that. He sacrificed himself and saved a drowning classmate. The Swordmaster and all instructors agree this is worthy of praise. A hush falls, broken by rhythmic applause. Among the crowd, Judith claps fervently, a bright smile of gratitude on her face. The scene shifts to the Swordmaster's office. The blue-haired noble admits he understands now, confessing his perspective had been narrow-minded. The Swordmaster waves off the self-deprecation. The young noble acknowledges his arrogance. With newfound resolve, he vows to change his path. He offers a respectful bow and departs. As the boy walks out, the Swordmaster watches. Internally, he catalogs the student's worth, great talent, and keen awareness. In any other year, he would have easily secured first place. However, his gaze shifts to the next student, a silver-haired girl with eyes like cold steel. He laments that this year is an anomaly filled with exceptionally gifted individuals. The girl asks for his personal guidance. The Swordmaster leans forward, expression hardening. He tells her not to be swayed by others and to live her own life. He urges her to stop wasting time and suggests returning to her family. The girl's composure cracks, replaced by fierce intensity. She rejects his dismissal, shouting she wants him to guide her. The old man sighs, rubbing his temples. Realizing her stubbornness is immovable, he offers a compromise. He asks if she'd mind training in his office, since it's quite large. The girl's intensity vanishes, replaced by quiet gratitude. Once she leaves, the Swordmaster exhales. Finally, it's time for the last person. Aaron Pereira takes the seat. The Swordmaster looks at him, expression inquisitive yet kindly. He asks if there's any specific reward Aaron would like. Internally, the Swordmaster's gaze sharpens. This is the moment he's been waiting for. He's most interested in what this particular boy will say. Aaron sits nervously. He looks down, struggling to find words. After hesitation, he looks up, eyes earnest and vulnerable. He doesn't ask for power, a sword, or a secret technique. Instead, he asks simply how he can reconcile with someone. The young man sits on the chair, shoulders hunched. Irene apologizes, saying he doesn't know who to talk to about this. The old-school master watches with gentle expression. He sees a boy who spent his life in isolation. He tells Irene not to be sorry, thanking him for being honest. The master's thoughts drift to rumors, a child who never left his room until age 15. This is his first real attempt at socializing. Someone must have finally reached out to the boy who had always been ridiculed. The master tells Irene to explain what happened. Time passes as Irene recounts the events involving Ilya Lindsay. When he finishes, he thanks the Swordmaster. The master is struck by the unlikelihood. He never imagined Ilya Lindsay would form a connection with this boy. He leans forward, telling Irene to move on to the main topic. The master explains his conscience won't allow him to reward Irene with just words. He'll teach him a lesson about the sword. Ask anything. The offer is immense, yet Irene freezes. He stammers an apology, admitting he's not sure what to ask. He only started using a sword for a month before entering school. He doesn't know what to ask about or what he wants. Silence stretches. Irene begins to ramble, overwhelmed. Suddenly, the old man brings his hands together with a sharp impact in front of Irene's face. The burst cuts his rambling short. The master booms that there's nothing to be sorry for. Don't apologize too often. As a swordsman, that's how to stand up strong. Irene straightens up, self-doubt lifting. The master decides to postpone his reward. Irene can come later when he feels he's not good enough, or the master can decide when necessary. Irene stands, relief washing over him. After dismissing the boy, the school master watches Irene walk away. He muses about what a special child he is. Yet, suspicion tugs. Despite the boy's lack of formal knowledge, there's no anxiety regarding the sword itself. He seems to possess calm clarity. It's almost as if he's receiving assistance from someone else. Meanwhile, in the training hall, Irene struggles through push-ups. A sharp voice cuts through. Irene looks up to see Judith standing over him. Judith looks away, face flushing. She fidgets, struggling with her pride. She squeezes her eyes shut and pivots sharply, shouting, "Thank you." Irene blinks, taken aback. Judith turns back, face bright red, but expression fierce. She'll repay her debt. Judith declares they should stick together from now on. Aaron blinks, confused. Judith leans in, annoyed. Since he always eats alone, and she's without a companion, it's logical they combine their solitude. They can partner up for sword training. She delivers a hearty slap to his back. When he hesitates, Judith's face falls into ominous shadow. Her eyes glow with menacing light. Terrified, Aaron stammers out agreement. Satisfied, Judith reverts to cheerful self. She waves, announcing she'll take her leave. Aaron watches her retreat, rubbing his shoulder. She's definitely 3 years younger, yet he smiles. Despite her aggression, companionship isn't bad. Later, the hall fills with murmurs. Judith is in high spirits, loudly singing about grilling turtles. Aaron walks beside her, laughing nervously. Students whisper, unsettled. Lloyd's companions wonder if the near drowning has unhinged her. Lloyd isn't focused on Judith. His gaze drifts to where Ilya Lindsay walks, in complete isolation. She moves with cold air. Lloyd notes the strange distance. Sensing a shift, the speculation is cut short when a boot stops. The instructor announces conditioning is over. Today, they begin sword training. He grants them 2 hours to handle weapons freely. Students rush the racks. Judith grabs a wooden sword and tests swings. She smiles, realizing aggressive strikes now feel controlled. Lloyd tests his blade, marveling at how light it feels. While others practice, footsteps echo heavily. Aaron walks past rows of long swords. He stops in front of the wall mount where the heaviest equipment is stored. Hanging, there is a massive wooden greatsword, a slab of timber resembling a construction beam. Aaron stares at it. Memories flood back. He reaches out and grips the hilt. His muscles tense as heaves the weapon off the rack. It's absurdly heavy, but he holds it steady. In the background, the old-school master watches with a knowing glint. Aaron adjusts his stance. He breathes in, focusing his entire being. With sudden explosive motion, he swings the giant blade downward. The weapon cleaves the air with terrifying force, stopping inches from the ground. The displacement kicks up a violent cloud of dust and wind. The heavy whoosh reverberates through the hall. Lloyd and his friends freeze, eyes widening in shock. The atmosphere is thick with confusion. One trainee stammers about whether the performance is impressive, doubting the skill. Instructors offer critical analysis. The bearded man notes that while the form is rough and lacks polish, it adheres shockingly well to standard stance. It's technically sound if unrefined. The silver-haired girl watches in silence. Students exchange looks of disbelief, recalling the blonde boy claimed to have no prior training. A sudden wave of hostility cuts through. The blue-haired noble narrows his eyes, thoughts dripping with disdain. He considers the display ignorant arrogance. He moves with purpose, boots striking the floor with heavy thuds. He stops behind the blonde boy and shouts Irene Pereira with commanding force. The blonde boy turns, startled. Lloyd raises his practice sword, leveling the tip at the other student's chest. He declares a challenge to a duel, voice echoing. The reaction is instantaneous. Collective shock ripples through the crowd. The redhead, silver-haired girl, and whispering boys gasp. Instructors look on with widened eyes. The blonde boy stands frozen. Tension mounts as silence reclaims the room. A bead of sweat trickles down the blonde boy's temple, eyes wide with anxiety. He looks uncertain, gaze shifting to the elderly headmaster, watching calmly. The old man offers a single slow nod, a silent gesture of permission. Seeing this, hesitation vanishes. He sets his jaw, expression shifting from nervousness to steely determination. With newfound resolve, he shouts his acceptance, agreeing to the duel. The tension spikes as the red-haired instructor storms forward, demanding to know what they're thinking. Formal duels are strictly reserved for those who completed sword training classes. Among the crowd, a green-haired student mutters about the absurdity. Why would Brett challenge Irene, whose swordsmanship consists of nothing more than swinging a heavy blade without technique? The instructor attempts to shut down the confrontation. However, the elderly sword master intervenes with a gentle smile, suggesting there are times when exceptions must be made. The instructor stiffens, silenced by authority. The old man stands between the combatants, issuing a stern safety warning. Both shout their agreement with a calm command. The sword master signals the beginning. Brett moves instantly, body blurring as he launches a high-speed lunge. Irene barely reacts, hoisting his massive greatsword to shield his body. Brett's blade strikes, with heavy impact that vibrates through Irene's arms. The blonde boy grimaces, sweat breaking out. Brett doesn't relent. He flows into a rapid sequence of strikes. A red-haired girl in the crowd narrows her eyes, sensing Brett is testing his opponent. Inside the ring, Brett dissects Irene's movements in real time. While Irene's reaction speed is surprisingly decent, his fundamentals are terrible. Concluding that Irene's skill level is worse than anticipated, Brett decides to gauge raw power. He creates an opening, baiting an attack. Irene takes the bait, heaving the great sword upward for a desperate overhead smash. A dark aura trails the weapon as he brings it down with a shout. Brett's eyes widen at the sheer pressure. However, the attack is telegraphed and clumsy. Brett sidesteps the crushing blow, letting the heavy blade slam harmlessly, capitalizing on Irene's overcommitment. Brett lashes out with a precise flick against the great sword's guard. Irene's grip fails, and his weapon is sent spinning, leaving him defenseless. The great sword skids across the stone tiles. Irene stands breathless, eyes wide with shock. The proctor's voice booms. The duel has ended. Winner, Brett Lloyd. Later inside the lecture hall, an instructor announces that based on test results, trainees will be divided into classes. He reads names of the elite. Ilya, Lindsay, Brett Lloyd, Judith are the 10 people in Class A. The instructor warns them their high rank grants tougher training. The list continues. Judith leans in close to Irene, grinning. She tells him to trust in his big sis from Class A, confident he'll be placed reasonably well. Irene agrees, nervously. But as the instructor finishes Class C, sudden silence falls. Judith realizes Irene's name hasn't been called. The instructor clears his throat, and the last person, Irana Pereira, is in Class F. Iran stands frozen, looking utterly doomed. Later, in a secluded clearing, Judith paces, venting her fury. She complains about Brett, calling him an annoying bastard. She refuses to accept the result, shouting, Irene shouldn't be discouraged. Her tirade is cut short when she notices Irene staring with calm gaze. Irene speaks with disarming sincerity. He tells her not to be so angry. While he's deeply grateful for her concern, seeing her upset bothers him more than the loss itself. Judith's face erupts in crimson blush, composure shattering. Flustered, she lashes out in panic, smacking Irene while shouting denial that she was ever concerned. Irene winces, complaining about the bruise. Meanwhile, Brett collapses onto his bed, letting out a heavy sigh. His mind drifts back to the duel, replaying the moment Irene swung his sword. It wasn't the technique that haunts him, but the sheer unbreakable will he saw in Irene's eyes. Brett realizes he'd instinctively dodged the vertical slice without thinking, overwhelmed by the feeling that the attack was unstoppable. Back in the training grounds, Irene stands before Run Tarhal, the temporary instructor for Class F. Rune confirms the boy knows no techniques other than basic slices. When Irene apologizes, Run laughs it off. He poses a question. What does someone who started late need in order to keep up? Irene guesses hard work. Run's expression shifts from friendly to intense. He grips the massive blade on his back. No, he declares, drawing the weapon with violent burst that creates a shockwave. It's talent. The instructor slams the practice sword into the earth, the impact sending a tremor and kicking up dust. Of course, hard work is important as well, but it doesn't apply to you, who is more than a few years behind. The student swallows hard. 1 week, the instructor announces, familiarize yourself with basic sword skills within a week. If you pass, you'll immediately be promoted to Class C. And if I fail, nothing will change. But if you don't have at least that much talent, it would be best for you to leave the academy. The boy clenches his fists, expression shifting to determination. He shouts his resolve. I'll do my best. The instructor's stern facade cracks into a grin. The grueling week begins immediately. The boy swings the oversized wooden sword. By the second day, the instructor barks corrections. Bend properly. Too much strength in your shoulders. By the third day, movements begin to smooth out. Good. You're doing well. Day 5 brings exhaustion, but stance holds firm. On the 6th day, air whips violently as the boy cuts through space with increasing velocity. The instructor watches, realizing he wasn't even as skilled in his own youth. The boy possesses genuine talent. By the final evening, the boy stands amidst trees, steam rising from his body. He turns to Judith, asking for a final check before tomorrow's test. I'm pretty meticulous, Judith warns. If it looks ridiculous, I'll kick you. The boy takes a breath. Judith watches with casual smile that vanishes the moment he moves. The air shrieks as the blade becomes a dark blur, slicing through wind with terrifying speed. Judith's eyes widen, confidence replaced by shock. How is that? The boy asks, panting. Judith recovers and thrusts a thumb upward, beaming grin returning. Later, in the recovery room, the instructor sits with a warm drink. A staff member enters, surprised. The instructor adjusts his glasses, satisfied smile playing on his lips. He thinks of the blonde student, visualizing him clad in armor, holding his weapon with newfound confidence. Against the odds, the boy made it to Class C. The cafeteria bustles with noise. Judith attacks her meal with ferocity, a tower of empty plates stacked beside her. She lectures the blonde boy, criticizing his modest portion size. Nearby, Lloyd maintains bored indifference while his companion, Lance, sneers, mocking Judith's appetite. Judith doesn't explode. Instead, she turns with smug expression. She loudly speculates that Lance must be harboring a secret crush on her, considering how intently he's been watching. She apologizes with mock sympathy because he simply isn't her type. Lance's face contorts with humiliation. He stammers, but Lloyd intervenes. His voice is cool and authoritative. He orders Lance to stop and walk away. Lloyd advises that bad-mouthing others serves no purpose. Judith watches them leave, noting that Lloyd has been surprisingly mature lately. Turning back, Judith probes her companion about his relationship with Lloyd. When the boy denies any quarrel, she shifts the topic to the silver-haired girl sitting in solitude. Ilya. Judith points out that since he's in Class A, he must see the prodigy frequently. She leans in with mischievous grin, asking if they become friends. The question sends the boy into panic. He leaps up, stammering denial. Judith bursts into laughter, revealing she was teasing. Her expression sours as she looks toward Ilya. Nothing has changed. Ilya remains the untouchable top ranker, isolated by peers crushed by her talent. Judith recounts rumors of Ilya practicing alone in the armory every evening. She turns back with sharp grin, telling him he needs to get promoted quickly if he ever hopes to stand on Ilya's level. The setting shifts to the training hall. The boy stands ready as he signals the start. Judith launches forward in a blur. The boy braces himself. Judith's attack is not just fast, it's heavy. She swings with terrifying force that threatens to buckle his knees. He manages to block, but the impact reverberates through his bones. With desperate cry, the boy heaves his wooden sword overhead. Judith watches with sharp eyes. She doesn't flinch. She raises her weapon to intercept, catching the blow with jarring impact. Judith grins as she feels his strength falter. With sharp exhale, she shoves back, overwhelming his stance. The boy's eyes widen as his balance crumbles. Judith laughs, delivering a sweeping counterattack. The force lifts him off his feet, sending him crashing onto the tiles. Dust settles as he lies on the floor, groaning. Judith stands over him, sword resting against her shoulder. She admits he has improved a bit, though quickly adds he's still nowhere near her level. She glances around the empty hall. Shadows are lengthening. She decides that's enough, pointing out it's late. As the boy picks himself up, Judith leans in with mischievous glint. She mentions that if he heads to the Soyan armory, he might find Ilya there. The boy's face flushes, stammering protest, but the seed is planted. Later, the boy stands in the quiet courtyard. The silver-haired girl pauses her training. She stands motionless, black sword held vertically. She senses him immediately. Turning, she fixes him with piercing gaze and asks what he wants. The boy shrinks, managing only a shaky greeting. Ilya stares impassively, repeating her demand. He swallows nervousness and steps forward. Holding out a small blue pouch, he explains he came to give her this, a letter and gift from home. Ilya looks at the pouch, confusion softening her expression. She asks why he's giving it to her. The boy pauses. He explains he has a younger sister. A memory flashes of a girl with golden hair, fierce and frustrated. He explains his sister was never good at dealing with people, just like Ilya. Because of that, misunderstandings were common and they would quarrel. But the day after a fight, she would always leave a letter and gift by his bedside. The boy rubs his neck, smiling sheepishly. He admits he's also bad with words. Organizing thoughts to speak them is a struggle. So, he decided to write a letter instead. He tells Ilya he finally understands why his sister preferred writing them. Do you think I'll help you again because of this? Ilya asks, voice cool. She stands opposite him, posture rigid, seeing his discomfort. Her expression softens just a fraction. It's fine though, she mutters. The boy offers a sheepish smile. I'm sorry for interrupting. I'll leave now. He retreats, leaving her alone with the pouch. Later that night, Ilya sits at her desk, illuminated by lamp glow. She reads the note, faint smile touching her lips. How childish, she whispers. She reaches for the pouch and loosens the drawstrings. She retrieves a simple polished metal band, a bracelet. As she holds it up, her eyes widen. Amusement vanishes instantly, replaced by sudden violent jolt. A memory crashes into her mind. She sees a hand smeared with fresh blood reaching out in a wide eye filled with despair. A bracelet. She breathes, voice trembling. This is the metal band resonates, sending a shock wave through her. It's an Adonis. Dark energy swirls around her, hair whipping upward. Her face contorts in mixture of anguish and overwhelming power. The room shakes as a pillar of blinding white light erupts from her body. Slowly, the light recedes. Energy dissipates, leaving her standing, chest heaving. She turns her head, mind racing with new perspective. Maybe she thinks grip tightening. Maybe I was too wrapped up with that. The scene shifts to the training hall. The red-haired girl stretches. We're increasing the intensity today, she announces with grin. Beside her, Irene looks concerned. Their conversation is cut short by heavy boots. Both turn to see a blue-haired student marching toward them. The red-haired girl steps forward defensively. Did you come here to pick a fight? She demands. The newcomer stops. I have something to tell you, he says. He turns his gaze past her, locking eyes with the blonde boy. I need to tell you something, too, Irina Pereira. Why me? The red-haired girl grumbles. Is this guy crazy? Ignoring her, the blue-haired student steps closer to Irene, shedding his arrogance. From what you've shown at the midterm evaluation and in our last fight, he begins earnestly. You have this deep concentration that I don't seem to have. Irene blinks, surprised. The blue-haired boy presses a hand to his chest. I would like you to teach me that. I'll also teach you how to use the sword. I would like for us to make up for each other's shortcomings and grow together. The murmurs of students create a low hum in the training hall. Judith breaks the quiet, resting her blade against her shoulder, expression sharp and accusatory. What are you up to? She demands. Aren't you trying to make use of him? The blue-haired student meets her gaze with unflinching calm. Sure, you're right. Judith's jaw drops. What? You're pretty shameless, but is that really a bad thing? He counters with a smirk. I can get satisfactory growth on my own, but that method is inefficient here. I won't be the only one using you. You guys can also use me. You've also been competing with Irene all the time. He raises a clenched fist, demeanor shifting to impassioned. I believe I need to gain experience from various people. The swordsmanship we learned doesn't end here. This is an opportunity. Surrounding students whisper in awe. Fine, he says decisively to Irene. Judith looks baffled. Irene looks anxious. But will it be okay? Irene asks, shoulders slumped. I'm way too incompetent. The blue-haired student smiles. I told you already that you have something that I don't. Internally, his mind races. Despite training for the same amount of time, why does a gap remain? He realizes the quality of that time differs. In his mind's eye, he sees Irene training from beginning to end. Irene Pereira does not once lose concentration. That's the secret. He looks intently at Irene. Let me know. How do you manage to stay so focused? Irene blinks. I don't really know. The student sighs. I expected you to say that. All geniuses usually say similar things. What do you mean genius? Irene stammers. No, from what I see, you're a genius. The student interrupts firmly. Maintaining your concentration isn't an easy feat. I have private training today. Judith, you're practicing with me tomorrow, right? Judith bristles. What? I never agreed. The student stops and turns back. Oh, and let me give you advice. Irene Pereira, stop putting yourself down. You were born into the Pereira family, which is of noble blood. Now you've shown acts and ability that befits one from a noble family. So be proud of yourself as a noble. Irene watches him go stunned. Beside him, Judith sticks out her tongue. Bleh? Am I the only one who feels like puking? Time passes. In the hall, the blue-haired student stands beside Irene, fulfilling his end of the bargain. Your hand is too fast here, he instructs. Brett holds his blade steady, instructing Irene on the finer points. He emphasizes the movement must be singular and explosive. To demonstrate, Brett lunges forward, a blur of precision. Later, Judith stomps away, shouting she refuses to continue. Brett and Irene watch with bemused expressions. Brett estimates her mood will last about a week. They share a light laugh before heading to the dining hall. The meal is noisy as Judith aggressively shovels food. A silver-haired maid approaches. Irene informs her he's read the letter. Judith immediately stops chewing, eyes widening. She leans in, demanding to know if Irene just confessed his feelings. Flustered, Irene frantically waves his hands. That night, Irene lies in bed. His mind replays Brett's advice about concentration. He stares at the ceiling, determining he needs to improve his mental focus. He closes his eyes. The darkness of sleep takes him. The silhouette of the great swordsman appears. The dream crystallizes, placing Irene on barren, rocky terrain. Irene looks down at his hands. Unlike previous dreams, he feels a distinct sensation in his palms, a phantom weight, a vibration coursing through his body. The man raises his colossal sword, and Irene feels the ghost of that movement within his own muscles. Irene wakes with a sharp gasp. He sits up in darkness, sweat clinging to his skin. The sensation is fading fast. He must grab a sword immediately to anchor this fleeting feeling. By sunrise, Irene looks like a walking corpse. Dark circles hang under his eyes. Judith looks at him with confusion and annoyance. When they cross swords, Irene's gaze drifts. Unfocused, Judith yells at him to pay attention. Moments later, Judith finds Irene slumped on a bench, fast asleep. She begins to shout, but Brett intervenes. Suddenly, Irene springs from the bench. His eyes are glazed, but his body snaps into a perfect combat stance. Just as quickly, his energy cuts out and he collapses back. Brett stares, bewildered. When Irene rouses himself, Brett approaches. Irene offers a tired smile and explains he's training to improve his concentration, though it isn't going well. Brett suggests it might be akin to meditation training. Irene nods vaguely. Judith stares down at Brat, sprawled across the bench. When Judith points out his slumber, Brat corrects her. He insists he wasn't sleeping, but engaging in meditation training. Judith's grin sharpens as she asks if this technique involves snoring. Brat flushes. He quickly pivots, declaring his posture must have been the issue. He adjusts himself, adopting the classic lotus position. However, the allure of Irene's unique method is too tempting. Brat decides to try Irene's way. Lying back down, he closes his eyes. Tranquility washes over him. The world fades to black. Deep in the void, a voice pierces through. Sir Lloyd. Brat's eyes flutter open as Irene comes into focus. The calmness was just deep sleep. Judith stands over him, scolding him. She reminds him that Irene is a special case, and that trying to mimic his sleep training is useless. Brat refuses to concede. He argues that one can never know the results without attempt. Judith sighed, dismissing him. Meanwhile, in the administrative wing, the Swordmaster stands by the window. His assistant reports there are no issues and confirms that Irene Pereira has officially been promoted to Class B. The assistant adds that the support from Brat and Judith significantly accelerated his growth. The Swordmaster turns, a glint of interest in his eyes. The assistant offers a knowing smile. He notes that it's actually Brat Lloyd who is acting as the catalyst. Brat is creating small waves of change throughout the student body. Back in the training hall, the truth is on full display. The room is silent, filled with palpable focus. Rows of students sit on the stone floor, swords resting beside them. They're all sitting cross-legged, eyes closed in deep concentration. In the center sits Brat, the picture of serenity. Despite his earlier failed experiment, his dedication to meditation has taken root, inspiring the entire class to follow his lead. A wooden training sword skids across the stone floor. The duel is over. The instructor announces Brett Lloyd as winner. Brett stands tall, one hand raised in victory. On the ground, Judith lies sprawled, groaning. This bastard, Judith shouts, scrambling up. One more time. Brett merely smirks, turning his back. The instructor's sharp rebuke cuts through her tirade. Later, the instructor watches from a distance, a warm smile softening his features. Despite their constant quarreling, he recognizes the fire in them. They're improving at a speed that defies expectation. His gaze lingers on Brett. The blue-haired boy is advancing rapidly. Brett clenches his fist, measuring the newfound power. If he keeps improving, perhaps he can finally reach the unattainable. His eyes drift toward a silhouette. Ilya, practicing alone. She is the summit he aims to conquer. Deep in the forest, Irene concentrates on his own path. He heaves a massive greatsword upward. He drives the blade down. The sword strikes earth, kicking up dust. Thanks to meditation training, his focus has improved, but he knows it's not enough. Irene, Judith calls out, approaching with Brett. The Swordmaster called for a gathering. Let's go. We're going to the auditorium, right? No, Brett corrects. The martial arts arena. The arena is vast, filled with students sitting in disciplined silence. The Swordmaster, an elderly man with thick white beard, stands before them. It's been 9 months. Let me get straight to the point. The final assessment. Tension moves through the students. Unlike midterm assessments, we evaluate based on your potential abilities. You just need to demonstrate the area you excel the most. I hope you do your best during the remaining 90 days. Suddenly, the Swordmaster reaches for his robe. And this is quite early, but he casts the robe aside, revealing combat-ready tunic. A thin sword appears in his hand, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. I prepared a gift. It's just an old man sword dance, but I sincerely hope you can learn something from it. He closes his eyes. When they snap open, they're sharp and piercing. He moves. Blue light trails behind his blade as he twists and strikes, the air warping. He spins, the sword becoming a blur of azure luminance. It's beautiful and terrifying. Ilya watches, mouth agape completely.